Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism, narcissistic relationships, and healing from these difficult relationships. Have you ever had that experience where I get it, gray rock, yellow rock, don't go deep, la la la, but I just want to let the narcissistic person have it? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Something that's really tricky about narcissistic relationships is that over time, especially if you're stuck in them, you start feeling like a bit of a doormat. I get it. Someone is coming at you consistently, denying reality, manipulating, lying, shape-shifting, shifting blame on you, truth shifting. Not pulling up to that and not fighting back, it doesn't feel good. We want to stop, stop. I didn't say that, right? Someone recently told me, a good friend of mine said to me, she said, not going deep and just not letting them have it doesn't feel like it's authentically me. I don't want to put up with this. I don't want to let these people keep getting away with it. Again, I get it. So isn't there something, this person was wondering, isn't there something that could be added to the list of management strategies that currently are largely focused on things like gray rock? And that's basically no BS, go for it, and give them a piece of my mind, right? Yeah, you can give them a piece of your mind, and if you decide to do this, really let them have it, you better be really clear on your end game. When you engage with the narcissistic person, you give them supply, especially if you're fighting, arguing, taking the bait, and if you're behaving in a way that's more dysregulated than them. They feel superior if you look like you're spinning. That's when they become quiet, like, oh, someone's worked up. So it doesn't feel good. The other issue is what you expect if you do just let them have it. You have to be 1000% clear that you cannot expect them to listen to you, pay attention, believe you, or change their behavior. Those things aren't happening. If you are just going to speak your truth and speak back and push back, you're doing this for you, not for them and not for the relationship. You are doing this for you because you feel it's authentic to you. And my final disclaimer is that if you don't do well with rage or pushback or word salad or for them to come at you harder than you came at them, then you also may not want to go at them because they will. And if this is upsetting to you, and only you know you may not want to do it. I know that for many survivors of narcissistic abuse, you'll say, you find rage terrifying. So you may make choices that will diminish the likelihood of that rage. Then that's you being authentic to you. It doesn't make you a doormat. It means you saying, I want to protect myself. So after all of that, you decide one day, I'm not going to walk on eggshells. I am not going to, and I am going to defend myself when I'm being accused of something that isn't true. So I'm going to get right in there with them. And that's fine. Remember, all of this narcissism, surviving in the relationship guidance isn't about getting them to change or to listen to you or to hear your side of the story or to finally get it. It's about trying to manage the situation, figure out workarounds, and keep the trains running on time. But you may think, hey, I'm not protecting kids. I'm actually not scared of them. Rage doesn't bother me. And so if someone shifts blame onto me for something I clearly did not do, then I'm going in. I'm taking them on. Many people believe that to not do so would mean that they're not being authentic. They're not being true to themselves. And above all else, that's what's important. I have had people say, I'm going in. I understand your disclaimers, Dr. Ramani. And then when the narcissistic person comes back at them twice as hard and their feelings get hurt, I have to remind them they are going to give back harder than they get. You have to be prepared if you're going to enter the ring. But even more people will say, if they really are ready for it, they'll say, I actually feel a little better that I did get in there with them. It may affirm your belief that they are indeed an a-hole. And listen, this is not always a strategy. This getting in there with them is not always a strategy you can use. You may not be able to use it in a job that you need to keep. You may not be able to use this if there's any risk of physical violence. Only you know your scene. And every so often, this is a bit unicorny, but every so often, don't bank on this, you, by actually showing up and not taking it anymore, you may shock the hell out of them. After years of them making you dance on eggshells and you capitulating to their gaslighted mess, for you to push back may surprise them. You may be willing to throw the proverbial psychological Hail Mary pass and say, I'm done. You are a gaslighting, manipulative, cruel, unempathic, emotionally stunted man baby, and whatever else you have to say, say it, and then you walk away. I remember someone I know did this. A very nice empathic woman, vulnerable narcissistic husband. She was always giving in, always relenting, always walking on eggshells, and being so careful. And one day he just went a bridge too far, and she just lashed back and pushed back on him, once again shifting blame on her for something she did. She didn't do, I should say. And he actually backed down. That wasn't why she did it. She just did it to hold her ground. She'd had it. And to stop having to accept blame and a false reality. Now, even though he stepped down, he was back to his awful self the next day. My point is, you don't always know what the reaction will be. If you are going to clap back at a narcissistic person, you have to do an assessment of what the aftermath will look like. Will there be retaliation or financial harm or reputational harm or some other form of vengeance behavior? Knowing all that, make a decision and proceed accordingly. For some of you, there is no fear that the narcissist, you don't have fear because the narcissistic person doesn't have real power. But in other cases, they may have a lot of power and you have to bring that into your assessment. Remember that healing from narcissistic abuse is ultimately about finding your true self again, and not the self you had to create to remain in the narcissistic relationship, which basically consisted of you giving in to them. And if your true self needs to yell back or own your reality, then you do what helps you be whole. But also be prepared for their pushback. But like I said, this friend of mine said, you know what, it is not authentic for me to just sit here when somebody's behaving like this. I have to speak my truth. I have to be authentic. I thought that was actually a healthy perspective. In this particular case, there was not much harm this person could bring to her. They just kept whining and kvetching, and I think actually ultimately they might have even filed a lawsuit. But it was, to her, she's like, you know what, it's worth it because I cannot stand this person blaming me for this anymore. You do have to be ready for their vindictiveness. But I think at times, because healing is about you really, again, coming into your authentic self and out of their shadow, sometimes it may mean that you do, instead of just disengaging and gray rocking yourself out of a room. I don't know what kind of rock this is, maybe a big bright red rock, but whatever it is, it means if you need to get in there, it feels safe, it feels okay to you, and you're ready for it. You don't do it because you think it's going to change them, but it feels like at some level you're honoring yourself. Thanks again.